Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here to share my thoughts on the passing of Muhammad Ali. Um, Short summary: Muhammad Ali is was and is a special person, a special human being. There's not any there'll never be another Muhammad Ali. Um, yeah, so I mean, last night after watching the PBC card, the Rances Bartholomew Mickey Bay card, um, I was on my couch. I fell asleep, briefly, about maybe 20 something minutes or so, and I come to, and my phone's going crazy. I'm like, what is this? Like I'm hearing all these boom, 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 all these like three different notifications from my phone. And I look and I reach over and I look at it and I'm like, wow, it happened. Um, as most people know, Ali was in the hospital with a respiratory ailment, and they said he was fair. Something like, and he had been hospitalized a couple times, for various things, from UTIs or dehydration, stuff of that nature. Um, but he always seemed to bounce back. Um, and I know, and I mean, and I know in the last couple of years or so, I mean, granted, I mean the Parkinson's, I mean he was shaking, but he looked like he was healthy. I mean, because he still like the face was full and everything. But after he started looking more gaunt and drawn in, and you're thinking like, oh, this is a like the end is near. Now, me being I'm like I said, I'm a huge Ali fan. I idolize the man, and I don't idolize people, much less famous people, because they are just as flawed. But even Ali was flawed, but I idolized that man. I wasn't, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, this dude's gonna be around here forever. Parkinson's and all, he's still gonna be a figure. And fortunately, like I said, there's that was not the case. Um, so let me go into a little detail. I mean, most people don't forget the first time they've heard about Muhammad Ali, and I'm no different. It was in the 80s. At the time, as I probably mentioned before in a couple of my videos, my dad was a huge boxing fan. I grew up around it. Um, I grew up having like some of my uncles or some of the guys and the men in the neighborhood. They come over and they watch and they carry on about fights like that. So I was exposed to boxing very early. Um, so it was. Now, at this time, of course, in the 80s, Ali was pretty silent and mute, so he wasn't doing anything which, like standing out at that particular point. I mean, at that point, by the mid to late 80s, um, I was actually, I'm young, so I couldn't really make any correlation. I didn't really think of anything like that. However, I was upstairs in the living room, and I was watching something on ESPN, and it was a commercial, um, where there were people asking like, "Who's the greatest of all time?" And then people was like Muhammad Ali. And then all of a sudden, I see all these highlights of, the Frazier fights, the Cleveland Williams fights, the Foley fights, the Ali shuffles, all that, the guy talking loud. And I'm thinking like this, it's a young kid, like, what is this? Who is this person? And then pretty much, I think by the end of the commercial, because they were advertising, it was a video of Muhammad Ali, it was from Sports Illustrated. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, this is incredible. Like, I mean, it's like this. I need to. I mean, usually I felt something like I never usually felt before. It's like this is the guy that I need to. I need to like watch. I need to follow. I need to learn from. And then I didn't get that from any other boxer, much less any other athlete like that. Um, So eventually the tape did come, because at the time my father did have a subscription to Sports Illustrated. Um, so I think it was free if you had a subscription. So the tape came, and I swear I think I wore that out. Where I watched that video constantly. I said everything. I used to repeat what I heard. Used to talk about it in elementary school. Ali was this. Ali could beat Tyson. All types of this is this is the conversation I was having. I mean, it got to the point. Also, too, another byproduct is um, Muhammad Ali was the reason why I was like, I need to actually try to learn how to box, try to learn how to fight, try to fight. Period. Because I wanted to imitate. I wanted to imitate the speed, the hand speed, the Ali shuffle. Do what he did, go on my toes, dance. Dance style on somebody, and then just wipe them out. Overcome odds. That's how I felt, and I wanted to like like I said before that, I mean, the only time I ever felt wanted to fight was when I was watching Bruce Lee movies, who's also unique, who's also a unique individual in his own right. But Muhammad Ali is like, I said, I really want to try doing this boxing thing, and of course I have, I've definitely laced them up before. I've experienced, I've trained like a boxer, not to any long-term degree or anything like that, but I had to try it. I just couldn't. I saw Ali do it, so I'm like, I had to do it. But also too, and it also is interesting. I started paying attention more because Ali used to be at all the big cards. If you had the box, Wink, the box. If you watched any of the pay-per-view fights or anything like that, Muhammad Ali was always there. He was always there for front row. Usually next to some other celebrity that's pretty much fawning over him, or that's just beaming just to actually be next to him. But I always used to wonder like why this Ali looked so different from the Ali in the tape that I was watching. Like the Ali that I was watching current day was, his mask, his face was like a mask. Like he was very expressionless, slow, walking, and the way he talked was. I mean, I was ignorant because I used to think fighters was just like, okay, they get hurt, but yeah, I never thought it'd accumulate. I thought, a couple reps they'd bounce back, and they'd be their normal selves, so to speak, afterwards. I was, like I said, I was pretty ignorant as a kid about, pretty much I thought, if you had to fight, oh no, the body would recover it. I had no concept of brain injuries, TBIs, any of the stuff that I now, of course, now as, being in my mid 30s, I'm more what I've seen it firsthand. I've watched fights, I've seen careers end and because of that, man, I've seen, aftermath of what a professional boxer can do to somebody. But like I said, at the time, it was like I'd never heard of Parkinson's. I was like, what the hell is Parkinson's? And like I said, I devoured every Ali book there was. I mean, the local libraries, like if they had a new book, I was on it. My dad had a book in the bookshelf in the garage about Muhammad Ali, and I think I read that front to back, back and front, center to back, center to back to center, center to front, every which way, just absorbing anything I could about the man. So and also by proxy, I also was because back in the library, there was no internet, so you actually had to, use the Dewey Decimal System to try to find books on Parkinson's. So at the time, they mentioned that he had Parkinson's, but he didn't. He had not the disease, but the syndrome, which is in this case was, which case of course he had, at the time because he took punches to the head. I mean, as a kid, that was his basic explanation I can get. Then of course as I got older, it's more complex than that. Considering the level of competition the man faced in his prime, or I should say in his prime during his actual career. But I used to think like, man, like, so that's the reason why. But I'm thinking, okay, it wasn't. It's like it can be controlled with medication and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, cool. I have to get used to this version of Ali rather than Then rather than the one that unfortunately I was not around for. The guy that was lightning quick, both of hands, feet, and mouth. Um, yeah, so yeah, I mean, let's say, nonetheless, I mean, my admiration of Muhammad Ali never wavered from that. Like I said, I devoured every book. I mean, one of my favorite books on Muhammad Ali, I think I remember, came out from Thomas Hauser, The Life and Times of Muhammad Ali. I think that probably went into detail more with that, and then also the autobiography that Muhammad Ali himself penned, well, probably with the help of someone that came out that my library also had. Like, I think it was just Temple of the Greats. It had the yellow cover on there. Like I said, I devoured every single book I could. And this is like pre-internet, so it's not like there's like not like this day where pretty much you type in Muhammad Ali into Google and you'll get everything about the man, from when he was a child to current day. But yeah, I never wavered from my admiration reading about him. I mean, it could be something that I probably heard plenty of times or read many times. I still would read it again. I devoured those books. I have both of those books, um, in in a PDF format and stuff like that. So it's on my. I usually I break it out like when I take my tablet and I go off on one of my trips or whatever. Um, I'd read those books because, like I said, there was just Granted, I've read them like plenty of times, but I still read it because it was just Muhammad Ali. I just couldn't. I never got tired of watching, reading anything that was Ali related. I was all in, man. Like I said, it only increased as I got older, as I got into my teens. The whole thing with the Olympics. Ali lighting the torch, that got him more attention. The When We Were Kings documentary, the Ali movie with Will Smith, and one of my things about the Will Smith movie, I mean, he did the best that he can, and I mean, it's probably still his best. It's still his best acting movie, and nothing against Will or anything like that. But you can't I mean, because the Ali movie captured pretty much on what was called the peak, the prime of Ali's career in life, which is from 64 to 74. When he beat Sonny Liston, converted to Islam, and then of course all the way to exile, Frazier fights, the Frazier fight, the first Frazier fight, and then finally Zaire, beating George Foreman to regain this belt 10 years after that fact. Muhammad Ali is one of the few people in the world you just can't. I mean, you can. I mean, even 2 or 3 hours, like you'd have to break it up into a couple movies because the guy was. I mean, the guy encompassed so much. And it's not even just the boxing himself. I mean, the boxing himself, he was spectacular. As a heavyweight, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find any heavyweight pre the Ali era that actually fought the way he did. I mean, the guy, fast. I mean, committed a lot of cardinal sins, pulling back from punches, but had the reflexes to do it. Never punched to the body. But however, like I said, the footwork is unbelievable. Like, you never find anyone whose hands and feet were so in sync. Had an underrated punch for a guy of his size. I mean, he was a big heavyweight, but I mean, the guy's punching power is more because he's knocked out. So he's knocked out and shook up a lot of people who are known for having good chins. I mean, today he's the only man to have actually knocked out George Foreman, and who has never been stopped in his own long career before or since that fight. And he fought the two of the most premier heavyweight eras in boxing. Yeah, I mean, speed, the stamina. I mean, the guy. I mean, Muhammad Ali was just incredible to watch, man. It was poetry. That's his probably the best. Um, that's probably the best way to actually describe watching Muhammad Ali fight. But even more than the boxing, I mean, the guy's one of the greatest humanitarians on earth. I mean, how many athletes today do you see that would give up their prime years, man, 3 years of them for that matter, and give up everything just for the religious beliefs, just for the beliefs that they shouldn't go over to another country to kill people because it was unjust, especially when he was actually being, especially when he was not, especially when he was facing the same wars in his own country. Uh, you'd be hard pressed to find athletes like that. I mean, pretty much one of the more poignant phrases he ever uttered was like, "No Viet Cong has ever called me nigger." And I mean, there's been so much that's just been that's been written just off that one statement. I mean, because back in the 50s and 60s, like, a lot of black athletes, I mean, they faced direct over racism. There's no question about that. So in those days, they had to stick together and had to solidify, had to take a stand as one in order to fight, in order to fight all these injustices. And I think that's of course, that made him a hero to many different people. It made him a hero to Black Americans. It made him a hero to, you know, non-Black Americans. It made him to Africans. It made him to people who were against the war. He was a pariah. He was seen as an anti-war. I mean, pretty much. I mean, Muhammad Ali is one of the few people that actually went head up with the U.S. government and won. It's. I mean, you say how absolutely spectacular. I mean, pretty much by the end of his actual career, I mean, the guy was a living legend. I mean, he was arguably probably the most famous man in the world. And usually, all these athletes, and you have to take the fact that Muhammad Ali was an athlete. I mean, you don't get athletes of this nature, uh, and from a guy who pretty much, I mean, wasn't necessarily. Wasn't necessarily book smart, but he was people smart. He was street smart. He knew what to say. I mean, it is simply incredible. Um, it is simply incredible what type of person that he actually was. I mean, and what he did resonates even to today. I mean, the guy has not. I mean, he had been retired for well over um, like 30 something years, like 35, even 30, was it 35 years? Um, and he was still, and still what he did was still made a resonated with people from future generations, my generation included. I was fortunate. I was born shortly. I was born shortly after Muhammad Ali's career wrapped. Um, so, like I said, I'm not one of the people that actually, I mean, that grew up with Muhammad Ali in that fashion, but he has been a part of my life for pretty much forever. um, I mean, especially like now, I've touched upon what he was as a boxer, as a humanitarian. I mean, what he actually brought to boxing. I mean, pretty much before Ali, I mean, boxers were making money. They weren't making money. I mean, Muhammad Ali was one of the first to actually really make the multi-million-dollar purses. He fought everybody. I mean, art showmanship that he picked up from Gorgeous George. I mean, the rhyming, the predicting the rounds. Um, I mean, no one was doing this type of shit in the heavyweights. I mean, pretty much in that. I mean, it was very. I mean, there weren't too many cocky people. I mean, historically, and I mean, one has to probably look at his predecessor. Was Jack Johnson, um, who I always said was the predecessor for Muhammad. I've always said this. But you really hard pressed, especially in those days, finding a black man who was loud and boisterous and cocky and did all this shit. Um, and pretty much Ali broke the mold. I mean, pretty much now today he's the prototype for what you call for the athletes of today, of what they are. I mean, a lot of athletes, of course, they look up to him and they've taken on various things from him. Um, and like I said, his influence for boxing will last forever. That is for damn sure. Um, so yeah, this is his passing. I mean, 2016 has been a motherfucker. I mean, hasn't it? Hasn't this been like something crazy? Like every one of the famous people are just dropping left and right. And I mean, I know some of them, like there's someone like, say, I know there's David Bowie and there's Fife Dog and there's Prince and a guy from the Beatles and Maurice White from Earth, Wind and Fire, who I also admired I mean, I would say that Maurice White was a genius, was an underrated genius that they should have college courses on him and his music. Um, Wrestlers, China. I mean, everyone's just dropping, man. And now we have Muhammad Ali. Part of me, it's like I said, it's sinking in. And part of me is it's sad. I feel sad, very sad about this, because like I said, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this, there's not another Muhammad Ali out there. There'll never be another Muhammad Ali. Um, but then also too, as you know, as Parkinson's, Parkinson's is a terrible disease, man. It's like you see slowly it was robbing him at first. I mean he was slow, and then after that he was just frail, and then he wasn't speaking at all. His voice was like slurred and then soft, and then it's a terrible disease, man. And someone with that type of spirit, being a prisoner in his own body, now he's set free. He's returned back to the essence. Um, and that's the mindset that I'm gonna. And that's the mindset I have, and as I just come to grips with his passing. Um, it's funny too. I have a lot of Ali media stuff. I've bought tapes. I've gotten a lot of media over the years. I have a poster. I mean, if only have, I don't, I rarely hang things on my wall. I mean, I have this nice picture up here that I got from my father's artist friend. Um, and then in my room, I have like the Nigerian flag, and then also, I used to have a picture of Muhammad Ali on there. I don't know what I did with that poster. That was the one thing. Before I know, it could probably be in a box. I didn't go through all my boxes, all of them. Some of them I just needed a place to actually put something in there, and my poster might actually be in there. But now, most likely, a little later, it might be time for me to get me a frame picture or something like that to put on my wall again. And also another thing that I need to. I'm surprised I never owned any of his shirts too. Like anything that I like, and I told myself, and I'm gonna do that too because I'm gonna be in the house for Thurman Porter at Barclays at the later this month. I'm gonna be there, and I think what better time to actually do something Ali rather than to have a shirt like that wear to the fight. So I'm pretty sure I probably won't be the only one. um, but yeah, Muhammad Ali. I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning watching stuff on CNN, ESPN, MSNBC, all the news outlets, and just like sitting there, just as in shock. I mean, it got to the point where it's like, usually it doesn't take much for me to go to sleep. But I was up to like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, okay, I need to actually go. So I had to go pop a melatonin, and even then, I only got like 3 hours. And got up and I called my father. My father is from Ali's generation, um, and he was absolutely he was crushed about it too. Um, as I said, because I mean Ali, was a big hero of his, along with James Brown. He told me all the stories and everything, and yeah, it's just like the world is going to be very different without them, and I'm pretty sure. And one thing too, the younger generation, in a way, this will be a good thing. So they're gonna see they're gonna really see the impact in the coming weeks or so of someone who transcended boxing, transcended many different things, and then maybe hopefully that something from the younger generation, somebody from the younger generation will actually step up, you know, because I'll be honest, I don't see anyone even have a tenth of having type of mindset that Muhammad Ali has. But maybe it might inspire some people to actually want to be more like Muhammad Ali. The good things, not the negative things, which I'm well aware of too as well. But I don't really want to talk about that. I mean, but so yeah, um, and most likely, I mean, today is a nice day, so probably as I'll probably be watching stuff on Ali all day until the fights later on HBO and ESPN. Um, and like I said, I'm gonna probably order some Ali stuff because like it's probably time for me to actually get me some Ali shirts around here. Um, so yeah, like I said, it's just, rest in peace to the greatest of all times. Um, Muhammad Ali will never be forgotten, and God bless him. All right, peace.